Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 21. 21 of Don't Be Ridiculous. Um,
That's
lot,
right.
lot to talk about today.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
you
We
know,
may have to split this into two podcasts, but we'll see how long it goes.
that's right. Because we can gas bag with the best of them. Um,
Yeah.
so, yeah, huge weekend. Had just had the, NFL last weekend of the regular season. We had Black Monday. A lot of coaches fired. A lot of people looking for new jobs.
Yep.
Unemployment is higher in the NFL after a couple days. And then we had but first we're going to do the college football national championship. Um,
Yeah.
so Georgia got their revenge.
Yep. For the SEC championship game and for what was it, 4 years ago?
Yeah, well, and Alabama's beat them 8 times in a row, I think, before this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this was a gigantic win.
It was a good game. Overall it was a good game. I mean, I don't think it was unbelievable, but it was pretty good. It had a lot of moments. Way too long because college football decides to have, I mean, every 2 minutes there's a commercial break that lasts like 5 minutes. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, you're watching the game and it's like you watch an NFL game. If it starts at like 105, by the time you get to like 150, you're like halfway through the second quarter. And then
Yep.
you're by 2:05, it's halftime, and then by 2:45 you started the second, or by 3 you started the second half, and then you're basically done by like 4:15. I mean, college that game took almost 4 hours.
Yep. It did take 4 hours, not almost.
I did. Okay.
That was a 4 hour game.
Okay.
It ended at 12:03.
Well, yeah, because I once they did that, once Georgia got the pick six, I turned it off because I was like, this is over. Um, but yeah, overall, good game. I do kind of wonder though if Alabama's two top two receivers didn't get injured, if Bama would have won, because I was watching it and I was kind of thinking, I just feel like Bama's going to come up with a play, or they're going to come up with a few plays and they're going to pull it out, in the end to win. And I just wonder if they had their two. Again, it's totally hypothetical. We don't really know how that would have worked, but I did find that kind of interesting. Not to take any credit away from Georgia, their defense played really well. Stetson Bennett made some throws. They were able to run the ball in the second half. They got the pick six.
Yeah, I think the game could have gone either way. There was
Yeah,
a point where I figured that something's going to happen and the game's going to turn, and I thought, the Stetson Bennett turnover where we couldn't, they had to review whether it was
to me, but
yeah, they had to review whether, and to me, you could have called it either way. I wouldn't have
yeah,
been able to argue with it, and they called it a fumble, and Alabama ended up getting a touchdown. You thought, oh boy, here it is, but
yeah, here it
then
goes.
but then Stetson Bennett just made gigantic throw after gigantic throw. And,
Yeah,
it's like, all right, we're going to go after them. And then they were able, like you said, they were able to run the ball. But I really thought from the beginning of the game, Georgia did what they needed to do to keep themselves in it. They defended the way they played defense.
stops and forcing field goals. Yeah,
Right. The way that their defense played was, I thought that's what I would see in the first game. I was kind of surprised that it took another game for them to get to that. They were like, all right, we'll just keep everything in front of us. And Alabama didn't really have a lot of big plays throwing the ball down the field.
yeah, and I think not having those two receivers was kind of part of that. That's why I'm wondering if it would have been different.
Yeah,
So
I think with just having, even when they just had the one receiver, I think Georgia could kind of keep him bracketed with two guys and play the rest of the way. If they had both of them, I don't know, it might have been a different
yeah,
story. But
so
they put pressure on Bryce Young, which is what they didn't do in the first game. They hit him a lot, even if, yeah, some of the throws he made, the receivers dropped it and stuff like that. Georgia did well enough to keep themselves in the game to give themselves
yeah,
a chance to win it. And, also, I feel like it's kind of like the way this season went. Alabama kind of played their best game of the season against Georgia in the SEC championship game.
yeah.
And so you kind of thought, all right, they just weren't quite as good in this game, and it kind of kept the door open.
That's
Um,
why I liked what Joel Klatt was on Colin Cowherd's show. He just said, basically, like if they couldn't do it this year, because Alabama, this was not the same team that we've kind of become accustomed to. If Georgia couldn't do it this year, then when are they going to do it? So,
Yeah, so I think I was looking at the rosters. It's amazing how many players on both those teams are going to the NFL.
yeah,
And honestly, those two teams were far and away better than everybody else.
yep,
This was a year, like, I know we're talking about expanding the playoff, but this was the year where nobody would have beat those two teams, and it's not even close.
yeah,
It's not as if, oh well, it was no. We saw what happened when Michigan played Georgia. Georgia smoked them. So it was, there's only those are the only two teams that could compete with each other.
yeah. I mean, that basically, yeah, that's they're so far and away, and it's basically like, look, if other schools want to compete with that, I mean, you got to be football factory. I mean, you got to have everything going. You got to have the recruiting going, you got to be paying the assistants. You got to be all in all the time. That's the only way you can even get close.
Yeah,
So,
and usually,
with hopefully, like, we get like some more regional diversity, and it's not just the Southeast playing for the national championship every freaking year. I mean, last year we had Ohio State in there, but if we could get USC or other some other schools in there, I think it'd be nice. But we'll see.
yeah, and usually the crazy thing about it is, Nick Saban doesn't usually lose to average quarterbacks. Usually, if you beat if you beat Alabama, you need Trevor Lawrence or Joe Burrow or somebody that's.
I just think Georgia's defense they had so much talent on defense that it kind of it. I mean, I did feel like at the line of scrimmage they really kind of dominated Alabama, but Alabama was still close. But I mean, I felt like they kind of dominated there, so I guess that kind of makes. And remember, like when Deshaun Watson beat him, he beat him on the last play of the game,
Right.
And then when Trevor Lawrence was just unbelievable that year, and they just totally blew Alabama away. But yeah, I mean, usually that's what has, like Johnny Manziel beat him one year. That's usually what has to happen. But
Yeah, usually you need a virtuoso offensive performance to beat them. So, I think it's great for Georgia. I think it's great for the dynamics of next season. Now Georgia has done it before, so you can't, it's not this,
it's
thing.
not anything.
And
Right.
so it's going to be, I think it's going to be really exciting. Georgia still has JT Daniels that they can, Stetson Bennett has another year, but Georgia still has, the blue chip quarterback that they can, they have for next year. And Alabama's got another year with Bryce Young. So it's going to be really, really, really exciting.
And then LSU, we'll see if they bump right back to where they probably could be. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. But the other issue that I wanted to bring up college football wise was, a couple of weeks ago, Kirk Herbstreit was on game day on New Year's Day and basically said that, all these players opting out of bowl games that, well, they don't love football. And,
Right.
that's the reason that these guys are all opting out. They don't love the sport as much. And of course, that caused a crazy stir on the internet. He got lambasted afterwards because Matt Corral of Ole Miss, their quarterback, got injured. And, he's like, well, these players don't love the game and shame on Herbstreit and whatever. So I was just kind of interested in this because I was like, how big of a problem is this, right? We hear about players opting out of bowl games. We don't really know how it actually works. So I looked at, let me finish on Kirk Herbstreit. First of all, he clarified what he said. Thank you. And, and I was upset with that. I was like, no, you don't need to clarify what you said. That's how you feel.
We know what you said. If that's how you feel, that's fine.
Right. I disagree. I may disagree with you. I don't think that. I think that's kind of a ridiculous generalization by a player who used to play in an older era. But whatever.
Yeah.
That's how he feels. Okay. So I looked it up. So there were 43 bowl games scheduled. Right.
Okay.
5 of them got canceled. So that leaves us with 38. Okay.
Okay.
That's 76 teams for the bowl games. Right. Now,
how many players are on 76 teams?
Yeah, so I looked up. I couldn't, from what I read, I don't think there's a limit to how many players you can dress for a game. I know there's an 85 scholarship limit, but there's no limit to how many players you can dress. So what I did was the NFL dresses 53 players for games. So I used that as my number. The number may be higher than that, but I use that as my number. So 76 teams with 53 players on each team is 4,028 players. I can't, obviously my information is not going to be perfect, but I can be close. From what I read, there were 29 opt-outs. Okay? This was like halfway through December 16th, I think was the article I read. So I just said, all right, let's just bump it up to 40. Let's assume there are 40 players opting out. So that's less than 1% of the players in bowl games opted out of bowl games. Now I realize a lot of the players that opted out are significant players. They're first-round pick talents, right?
Because those are the players that have clout that can do that.
Right, exactly. So there's really not that many players that opt out. I mean, less than 1%. I mean, it's like maybe you might have one. You might have one player. We tend to lose perspective in the media when we're talking about with certain things. People just don't look at it by the numbers and go, "Oh, this really isn't that big of a deal." Right. So most bowl games might have one player opt out. Might.
Right.
Okay. So the thing that we're complaining about, like, this is not. We're acting like this is, or Herbstreit would have you believe this is a disaster and we've got to do something about it, and it's bad. It's hurting the integrity of college football. Okay, Ohio State had their two best wide receivers out and a couple other defensive players. That was the best bowl game.
Yeah.
So this is absolute nonsense. That the opt out thing is not a problem. Now, players just transferring whenever the hell they want at any time they want. Okay, that's a bit of an issue.
Yeah, they need to kind of regulate that.
There needs to be some limits. We can't just let people do whatever the hell they want. But players opting out of bowl games, guys. This is small time. Yeah, this is not worth complaining about. Yeah. We're not losing viewers because guys are opting out, and it's not that many guys anyway. So
I know they're not going to talk about this on TV because they don't want to piss off the sponsors, but you may lose fans because your games take 4 hours. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Or the fact that there's only, it's two teams from the same region in it all the time, so the West Coast and the Midwest and the Northeast isn't watching. There could be more to it, than that. But anyway, and by the way, that doesn't ruin the championship game. We actually got a good championship game, which is nice. Which is nice for a change because we had the last 3 years we had complete blowouts.
Yep.
So it's a bit of a, it can be a bit of a disaster. But anyway, so anything else on that? Do you want to move on to the NFL?
Yeah, I guess we can move on to the NFL. I didn't really have anything else. Yeah, no.
Yeah. I thought Week 18 was going to be a snooze fest because, there were a lot of bad games, a lot of good teams against bad teams, or teams that had games that had no playoff implications. I thought it would just be terrible. But, it actually worked out for a pretty interesting Sunday. So I got to give the NFL credit, man. They figure out how to.
49ers game was good.
Yep.
The Steelers Ravens game was kind of ridiculous, but it went to overtime, I guess.
Yeah, listen, that's one of those things. I know everybody was watching that game because they thought it might be Big Ben's last game. That game was terrible. I could not wait for that to be over.
It was really bad.
Good Lord.
The Texans playing the Titans was actually a good game.
Yeah.
That Davis Mills guy, the Patriots were actually, if they couldn't get Mac Jones, we're going to take Davis Mills, who's been playing quarterback for the Texans. He's not bad. I don't know that you'd call it a good game, but the Jaguars beat the Colts.
Listen, that's where I wanted to start. I was, number one, I was shocked that the Jaguars won, but I guess I really shouldn't be shocked that the Colts laid an egg because they could have clinched it last week and they blew it to the Raiders. They had the lead. They should have won that game. And then this game, they just come out and they don't even, I wrote down the Colts go full Carson Wentz.
Yep.
And it's just, I don't know what his deal is. Like, it's like, do you look for problems? And the crazy part is, like, if you just look at the numbers, like, 50 years from now, people are going to be like, Carson Wentz wasn't bad. He was pretty good. He had 27 touchdowns this year and 7 interceptions. You'd be like, okay, not bad.
Throw interceptions that just, they're really bad or they're at the worst time.
He torpedoed at least 3 games this year by himself. And I didn't get the Colts at all. They come out and they're throwing the ball. It's like, you're the best running team in the league.
Yeah.
What are you doing? It's literally it's in I can't understand. I have no idea. It's inconceivable to me. So yeah, it's like I get the Colts and Wentz made the move, or I'm sorry, the Colts made the move for Carson Wentz, but my goodness, I mean, would you want Carson Wentz as your quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I kind of compare it to like Brett Favre, I guess, where they're I guess the thinking is, well, if we can just bottle this up the right way, we can turn that we can be like a Super Bowl contender. But at this point, I don't really know if it's possible. I mean, because the funny thing is that like people complain, Favre had a reputation of obviously throwing really bad interceptions. But the years when he was with Holmgren, like his prime years there, they pretty much had it kind of under control. He wasn't really like they might play a team that was better than them and they couldn't beat them, but it wasn't like Favre was just destroying their chances of winning a lot of these games. The really bad interceptions came after Holmgren left and the team kind of deteriorated, So I guess the feeling is, well, Carson Wentz, if we can just kind of, get this.
And a lot of Brett Favre was the team was behind and they're trying to come back, so he would make a garbage throw.
Carson Wentz is just, hey, we're in this game now. We're not anymore.
And he gets.
Oh, you think you're in this game? Interception. Here we go.
It's as if it's like you're playing bumper cars, and there's always one person playing bumper cars that's just looking to slam into everybody. Carson Wentz doesn't feel like the play starts until a defensive lineman is grabbing a hold of him. It's like that's when the play starts for him. It's like, oh no, I can make a throw. Yeah, I'm being grabbed and hit in the head, but I can throw it, no problem. He doesn't protect the ball when he gets hit. It's just I don't know, man.
Not in the octagon. This is the NFL. You're not in a cage,
And it's disappointing because the Colts have one of the best rosters in the league.
Yeah,
their offensive line's good. Their defensive line's good. Their running back's great. They have everything that you would want. It's just, oh my God.
When Frank Reich took the job, he had Andrew Luck, and they made the playoffs, and then they got to the divisional round, and then Luck got hurt again, and then he decided he was done. So it kind of, because they were set, they've been set up, and they're you got to get the quarterback right, or
It's just sad to me. That was the most disappointing team of the day. It was just, what the hell is this garbage?
Because even if they had won, they would have been 10-7. They probably could have been better than that. They probably could have won like 12 games.
Yeah, they should have beaten the Titans.
Playoff game.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, the second game against the Titans, they easily should have won that game. Carson Wentz completely torpedoed it. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a waste.
Amazing. The other thing is, I was texting you earlier, I think I figured out the 49ers. The 49ers and the Colts, to me, were the two teams that I was like, I like them.
I think they're good.
Right, but they've just disappointed me at every turn. They're Jekyll and Hyde. I have no idea what I'm getting. It makes no sense. The 49ers, they can't put four good quarters together. That's what it is. They can't do it. Okay, they showed that the game against Tennessee a few weeks ago, they're winning, they're dominating, they have it. And then in the first half and then in the second half, completely give it away. Like they're literally one good drive from just putting it out of reach, and they can't do it. This game against the Rams, they don't show up the whole first half. Second half, they show up. Jimmy G, I mean, unbelievable performance. Brings them down with less than 2 minutes to go to tie the game. And it's the same thing as the Colts. They have this great roster. Don't screw it up. Just don't screw it up. And it's like, and listen, the Rams do the same. The Rams kind of do the same thing. Like they have moments where but the difference is with the Rams ceiling or their high is so good. Like when they're good, they're unbelievable. But they don't get there very often. And so they pulled that game away from the Rams, and the Rams lost twice to San Francisco this year. I think I figured out the 49ers. I don't know about them in the playoffs, but that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, do you trust the 49ers or the Rams more?
Oh my God.
It's a tough one.
I mean, if either team's running the ball well, then I feel really good about it. But beyond that, like Stafford's never won a playoff game, and he's been like lately. He's just been throwing some bad He's had some bad interception games.
He's kind of like I think Stafford is like the 3-point shooter where he's streaky. He's like J.R. Smith. If he's rolling, feed him the ball. He's making 40-footers. It's no problem. But if he starts falling apart, like you got to reel it in. You can't let him throw the ball down the field. Because I mean they had a shot there, and he just kind of. So I thought that was really interesting. I want to talk about the Steelers for a second, and then I'm going to let you go on Big Ben because I know you had a big rant on Big Ben.
Talk about the infamous Sunday night game with Brandon Staley, who's never seen a game that he couldn't torpedo by going for it on fourth.
All right, so let's do that first, then we'll finish up with Big Ben.
Okay.
So the Sunday night game, by the way, delivered. That game was unbelievable.
Justin Herbert, when they got down 29-14, Justin Herbert was. I mean, it was weird because he was awesome because of the plays that he made, but it was just crazy because it would be like first down, nothing, second down, nothing, third down, nothing, fourth down, you better complete this, completes it. What the fuck? He did that like twice, like third down, third and long, boom, touchdown. It's like, what?
Yeah, the Chargers are our team that they just love to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat.
It's a character flaw at this because they've been doing this for the better part of 20 years now.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, first of all credit to the Raiders for fighting through that.
Yeah. They got out ahead 29-14. I mean, they were in control. So.
Yep. Yeah, and so Brandon Staley, he needs some work. That's all I can say. The head coach of the Chargers, like, dude, I don't know what you're doing, but he's supposed to be a good defensive coach. Their defense is terrible.
Their run defense is awful.
They can't stop anybody. Okay, so they can't in this game against the Raiders. They keep the strength of the Raiders on defense is their front. They keep trying to run the ball into it, especially on fourth down. Like, it's confusing as hell.
The people like the funny thing is that the beginning of this week, people are talking about the end of the game and him calling timeout. I don't really care about that at all. I really don't care. Okay, they needed to stop. They needed to stop the Raiders, and they couldn't stop them, and they kicked a field goal and they won the game. And the whole tie thing, I don't care. Okay, what I'm concerned about is the fact that the Chargers are only down by 3 points. It's a really close game. You have fourth down from your own 18-yard line, fourth and 1, and you decide to go for it. First of all, why do you guys keep getting into these situations where you get into these fourth and shorts? Okay, you can't convert it on third down. Second of all, what the hell are you doing going for it? If you go for it and don't get it, and then on the broadcast they were they showed the next gen stats, about what your win probability goes up to. And it's like, well, if you go for it here, it goes up to 45%. If you punt, it goes to it was 25% or something. And if you don't, if you don't get it, it goes to 25%. If you punt, it goes to 30. I can't remember exactly what the win probability is, but it's like, okay, I don't care about that, okay? Because if your win probability goes up to 45%, well, you're still 55%. You could lose the game, okay? It's only the third quarter. You're only down by 3 points. If you don't get it, they're going to get 3 points at the very least, okay? The odds are that they're going to get it, okay? So then you give up 3 points, and then first of all, you lost the game by 3 points, okay? And then let's go through the rest of the game as if, considering that 3 points, okay? So 17-14, 20-14. Wait, no, it was 17. Yeah, they kicked that, and then how did they get to 29? 20. Oh, okay. They got another. They scored, and then they went for 2. They didn't get it. Then they kicked another field goal. Okay, so if they didn't get that field goal, then it would have been 17. Let's see. Would have been 24-14. Okay, and then they would have kicked another. They wouldn't have gone for 2 because there's no point in going for 2 at that point. So then you kick a field goal. So then it's 27-14. So ostensibly, if you were down 27-14 instead of 29-14, when you scored the second touchdown, you would have won the game. in regulation, not even had to go to overtime or worry about a coin toss or playing defense or anything like that.
Yeah, the bottom line is they basically gave away 3 points and they ended up losing the game by 3 points.
Yeah, you are like, you could say that he's responsible for that. You're blowing your chances to get into the playoffs. Okay. And it's not just this game. You blew the Chiefs game, and people will be like, oh, well, what does it matter? That game happened weeks ago. Well, it does matter because getting into the playoffs is about your record, which is about the entire season. Okay. So if you give games away, which they basically gave the Chiefs game away, and they gave this game away, then your margin for error becomes much smaller because you just give games away.
Yeah, and like I said, they're trying to run the ball instead of just letting Justin Herbert try to win the game for you in the first half, and you would have never been in the situation where you would have had to complete 6 fourth downs or whatever it is to in the fourth quarter of the game. So it blew my mind. People were going crazy about, first of all, the idea that they wanted these teams to tie. That's what everybody wanted to see. So that's why everybody was like going crazy because everyone wanted it to happen so bad that they were just making up scenarios in their head. The Chargers call timeout or whatever, and he says, well, I wanted to get the best guys in there to stop the run. I can understand that. Like, I understand what he's saying, but first of all, that doesn't make any sense because the Raiders were going to let the clock run, so you would have had plenty of time to substitute whatever you wanted. So yeah. The argument there doesn't make sense. And the other thing is the Raiders did exactly what they were supposed to do, exactly what I would have done. They ran the clock all the way down, and then they kicked a field goal. They said either we'll make the kick and go to the playoffs, or we miss it and the game's over and we still go to the playoffs because we would have tied. So the Raiders did exactly what you should do in that situation. I don't understand why everybody's all upset about it. And then it's like the Raiders coach was like, well, we were discussing whether to accept the tie or not. And on Dan Patrick, he's like, I have a problem with that. You can't, accept the tie and let the Chargers make the playoffs. I'm like, that has nothing to do with it. Oh, it's your division rival. Your job is to make the playoffs, not give a rat's ass about the Chargers.
And by the way, it's not like they were conspiring the whole game to end up in this situation. They got up 29-14. Okay, they were trying to win the game in regulation, and Justin Herbert happened. Okay, so don't and look, if you get up into the situation, I mean, I think they probably would have kicked the field goal. Okay, but even if they did take a knee, you could defend taking a knee because you're like, well, look, if we lose this game, we're done. Okay, so you could just say, well, it's close to the end of the game. If we kick a field goal, they could block it, they could return it, something crazy could happen. We could just take a knee. I think you could still defend that, because it'd be one thing if you conspired the whole game and like during the week to end up in that situation, but no, you ended up in that situation. So then you act accordingly based on the situation that you're in.
Exactly right. Yeah. It's like everybody's freaking out that, oh my God, you can't tie and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you're the coach. It's your job to do what's best for your team. Don't give me this nonsense about, oh, well, now, would I like to see the Chargers in the playoffs over the Steelers? Hell yes. But that's beside the point.
That's Brandon Staley's fault.
Yeah, exactly. The Chargers should have already been in the playoffs, but they've thrown away so many games. It's unbelievable. Like, we'll get into coaches later, but my God, I mean, Brandon Staley, what are you doing? Like, seriously, the coach that they had last year did a better job than this guy. Yeah. Anyway, the Steelers somehow make it into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Much to my chagrin. I mean, by the way, if you ever need a year where, this is a sign we're letting too many teams into the playoffs, when the Steelers are getting into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Anyway, I watched that crap fest.
First of all, I will say this, though. Mike Tomlin is the real deal. I mean, we already kind of knew that, but I'll just he's never had a losing season the whole time he's been there. He had a winning season with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. I mean, so that dude can really coach. And by the way, really experienced coach who you'll never see going for it on fourth down in the wrong situation. Like these young idiot coaches seem to think, that's the other thing. We'll talk about this later, but I'll tell you what, there are a few coaches or a few teams who I know are not going to fuck up a fourth down like that. The Patriots, the Chiefs, the Steelers. I mean, the Steelers are going to lose to the Chiefs, but they're not going to fuck up a fourth down like that. The Steelers, and I think there's probably one other one that I'm missing.
Green Bay.
Matt LaFleur. I mean, because Green Bay, they should have gone for it on fourth
Right.
down in the NFC Championship.
Green Bay, right? Green Bay won't go for it even when they should.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you had something. The Steelers got in, which whatever. That's going to be. I have no interest in
Very
watching that
likely the
game.
last game will be against the Chiefs in Kansas City, in the playoffs in the next, I don't know what day it is, Saturday or okay.
Yeah, Sunday night. Yeah, we were texting about Ben Roethlisberger and kind of putting his career in perspective. So I wanted to let you.
We already know he's a Hall of Famer. Yeah, I mean we know that, but I think the thing that kind of set me off was, I think it was last. It was last weekend, because last weekend was his last home game in Pittsburgh. So Colin was talking about it on the show on like the Monday or the Tuesday, and he was basically saying that Roethlisberger left a lot on the table. Which, first of all, let me just point something out, and this is one thing I don't understand how this happens. Colin's got like a team that helps him come up with topics for the show and like organize stuff. How does Colin go on the air and say Roethlisberger has one Super Bowl? He's got two. Okay, that's kind of a massive oversight. And also, I don't care what sports, the talking heads say. Making a Super Bowl appearance also counts. He's been in 3 Super Bowls. Okay, and by the way, the 3rd Super Bowl that he lost, if Rashard Mendenhall didn't fumble the ball, he might have 3 rings right now. Okay. So that kind of annoyed me, and I was like, I don't really think he left a lot of meat on the bone. I don't think he really left a lot on the table. So I started, I went back, I went on YouTube, which is great that we have the advantage of this now, and I watched some older games with Roethlisberger, and then I looked up a lot of his stats. He's going to finish with, he'll be behind Dan Marino, but by like 3 touchdown passes. Okay, so Marino finished his career with like 420 touchdown passes, which I know now, Brady's got like, what does he have, like 600 or something?
I think 700.
Including playoffs, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So obviously that record's been obliterated, but it's still, to throw over 400 touchdown passes is still amazing. Okay. So he has that in terms of yards, in terms of wins. I forget what the wins, it was like 164 wins or something like that. He's never had a losing record. And then also, I think you also got to look at what is, when you're rating somebody, what were they at their peak? And maybe this wasn't his peak, but I mean, his second year in the league, he's in the playoffs. They have the road game against the Colts that they won. Remember that? They got up like 21-3. Okay, now I watched the 3rd drive. They ran the ball a bunch. The first 2 drives, Roethlisberger was in the shotgun, receivers spread out, and just throwing darts all over the field and getting them up 14-3 on the Colts, who were really good that year. Okay. That one, he's had some really good games against the Ravens in the playoffs. Obviously he had the 2-minute drive against the Cardinals in that Super Bowl that they won. Trying to think of what else. And I watched some highlights of, I think it was 2016 when he was playing the Patriots in the AFC Championship. Now, he lost to the Patriots in the playoffs multiple times. Yeah, so did everybody else. I'm not going to hold that against him. So I watched the first half of against the Patriots, and Roethlisberger was really good. He's not the reason they were behind. It's just the Steelers had trouble stopping the Patriots because the Steelers defense, they play a certain defense that Brady just carves up. So I don't know what you're supposed to do there, but Roethlisberger was on the money. He was making a bunch of throws. He had some drops. He had some other mistakes by some other people. Their running game wasn't as good. Oh, yeah. Le'Veon Bell got hurt. He got a groin injury at the beginning of the game. So he was out, so he didn't have his best running back. Okay. And he still made the game competitive. It could have been more competitive if, some other things had gone his way, but like just different things like that. And I'm like, this dude, and I'm looking at his numbers, I'm looking at his wins, I'm looking at different things. I'm like, you could legitimately make a case that this guy's top 10 all time. Maybe number 10, or maybe you'd say top 15 all the time or something like that. But I feel like you'd be hard pressed to name, 15 quarterbacks better than him, or even 12 quarterbacks better than him, and he's also got, he's 3rd all time in fourth quarter comebacks. He's got like 40 of them. Actually, wait a minute. 40, you probably count Sunday as 41 because he was behind in that game. So, and that's like comebacks aren't obviously the only thing, but that is like a really good metric to look at, because if you look at who else has all these comeback wins, it's, some of the greatest of all time. And that's also, if you're behind, it's on you as the quarterback to bring the team back. So the fact that you've done that 41 times is amazing. So yeah, like I said, I think you could legitimately make a case he's top 10, top 15 all time. So what Colin's saying about he left a lot on there, no, he didn't. He never got an MVP, but he had some really good years. I mean, not winning an MVP is kind of, your timing could be like, for instance, Drew Brees probably should have won an MVP, but his timing was bad. He had some good years while other guys had, slightly better years. So.
Right. Yeah. I think it's, it's a short, I think I sent you the list of guys that have 2 Super Bowls, and it's like 6 guys or 8 guys.
Yep.
It's, the difference between having 1 Super Bowl and, 2 is it's a huge gap. So I think, okay, depending on what your standard is, okay, so Ben Roethlisberger isn't the greatest of all time. So what? I don't know what more he left on the bone. And Colin's argument about, well, he didn't take care of himself well enough. This thing about fitness and nutrition and all this is about 10 years old.
Yeah.
Like in 2006, nobody was talking about that.
Yep.
Okay. So, it's like, all right, yeah, maybe his career would have lasted longer. Maybe. But he was big. He took a lot of hits. Okay.
Yeah.
Because of his size, he ended up taking a lot of hits. And as you know, when you watch Shaq in the NBA, he took a lot more punishment because he was bigger than everybody else.
Yep.
That's the way that works. So, yeah, I think it's
the way he played the pump fake that he would do, the one-handed pump fake, was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Okay. And then just his and you can say that he, I think as his career went on, he got better at playing within a structure of an offense. But his best stuff was holding onto the ball, waiting, trying to make stuff happen, shrugging guys off of him, and chucking the ball way down the field. I mean, and he was. I mean, you could probably say he's one of the best we've ever seen at doing that. Or probably maybe one of the only ones, because you don't have. It's only in recent history that we've got these guys that are ginormous athletes playing quarterback.
Yeah, and listen, most guys don't get everything you would want in a career. Okay, Dan Marino never won a Super Bowl. Steve Young won 1. Aaron Rodgers has 1. Brett Favre has 1. It's ridiculous to hold, especially when you're holding a quarterback accountable for team goals. It's like,
yeah, I mean, you guys are acting. I mean, it's you got. It's like Damian Lillard said a couple of weeks ago. About acting like you got to win a championship as if it's not the hardest thing you have to do.
Yep.
So yeah, I just that kind of annoy. I mean, you could point to anybody's career and go, and if you actually look into the details, you can go, well, if this thing worked out differently, maybe he'd have more championships, or maybe he would have won this one. But if this thing worked out differently this way, he might not have won this championship. So,
Yeah. All right. So, great career, Ben Roethlisberger. He'll be wearing a gold jacket someday.
In 5 years. You think he's first ballot? I mean, I don't see any way you couldn't put him in first ballot. Well,
the NFL's Hall of Fame's kind of tough. So sometimes you have to wait a little bit.
Wait, but he'll get in.
Yep. All right. So we don't have to watch the travesty that is the Miami Dolphins anymore anymore. Anyway,
we can just talk about it all off season about how much of a clown show their organization is
for the rest of the season. So the day after, the Dolphins fired Brian Flores, and I mean, I have many thoughts, but the first thing I want to say is, it seems to be, the reaction from all the sports media, ESPN, and everybody was basically, this is a shocking development. We can't believe that they fired Flores.
I would say that I would agree with that in the sense that no one was really talking about that happening. And Mike Florio said that he had heard rumblings about maybe Chris Greer, the GM, getting fired, but he didn't hear anything about Flores. So in that respect, I can understand that because we didn't expect this. I mean, we kind of figured once he turned the season around, it was like, okay, he'll get one more year and then, but perspective of from what you're talking about is the way they're reacting to what they think of Brian Flores as a head coach.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess it was. I certainly didn't see that coming, but it's not the craziest thing I've ever heard. And so, the first thing I wanted to say is, either you have standards or you don't. Okay.
True.
They were 3 years. They didn't make the playoffs once. Okay. Yes, they've had a winning record the last 2 years. I understand that. They also had a 7-game losing streak, followed by winning 8 out of 9. Okay. And, so I don't think it's out of bounds for us to hold the coach accountable, because my argument is I don't think it's that hard to be mediocre and try to get a little bit better in the NFL.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is you can't just take the coach getting fired in a vacuum, right? There are obviously all kinds of other things at play. So my initial thought is, I'm not in love with firing the coach. I thought he had done well enough to get another year.
Yeah, to get one more year where it can be the make or break year.
Right. But also, but the other way to look at that is, okay, so he gets one more year and the pressure is on from the beginning. They have to make the playoffs. And if they don't, you're fired. Well, if you're going to do that, you might as well just fire him now. So
yeah.
So that's, but anyway, yeah. So, but then there's a whole bunch of things that anger me about it, but I'll go ahead and let you, what were your initial thoughts?
I was just going to it's weird because part of me doesn't have a problem with it. Part of me is like, okay, I get it, because there's pros and cons with both. I mean, basically, like, look, the last 2 years he had a winning record. He won a bunch of games the last 2 years with Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tua, and Jacoby Brissett, which is pretty crazy. The defense, people are like pointing out the defense. The defense was never top 10. Okay. The defense has gotten better each year, and particularly the second half of this year, because the first half of this year was horrible. So yeah, now they've got some playmakers on defense. So part of you could say, well, I wonder what they would be like next year, given that they drafted some guys this year who are starting to make plays. So maybe they'll come into their own next year, and Xavier Howard's really good. And, maybe you can kind of make the case that way. But also, we really got to consider this, guys. I mean, he kept changing coaches all the time. Okay. You can't keep doing that. Okay. That's not, you got to have, I'm not saying you can't ever fire an assistant coach, but you got to have some level of consistency. The offensive coordinator this year had never been an offensive coordinator before. Okay. He lured Chan Gailey out of retirement to be the offensive coordinator for, because he'd worked with Ryan Fitzpatrick in the past. Okay. So like every year it was like a different offensive system. He fired the offensive line coach like a week before the season started, as far as him not getting along with people, I guess I can sort of see that, but if they were winning enough, I think it would have been fine. So I don't necessarily think that's that big of a thing, except for the fact that it seems like, we're getting reports now that Brian Flores wanted Justin Herbert, Chris Greer wanted Tua, and Stephen Ross wanted Tua. So they went with that, and then people are making this, I was thinking about this on the way home from work today. Like, people are making this thing about, Flores never really backed Tua as the quarterback. Okay. And to that, I have to say, look, you earn the benefit of the doubt. You don't just get the benefit of the doubt. You earn it by the way that you play, by the way that you play in the games, the way you practice, what they see when they watch you play. Okay. So, he probably wasn't as supportive of Tua because he didn't really want Tua. But at the same time, the dude's got to win games if he wants to keep his job. On some level, it is a job, and the guy's got to keep his job. Okay, so you're getting upset that he pulled Tua for Fitzpatrick. They should have made the playoffs last year. Okay. So, and they probably would have if not for Tua stinking up the joint playing offense last year. Okay. And as a matter of fact, they probably could have made the playoffs this year if it wasn't for Tua making some really bad interceptions or just not being able to run the offense in some of these games. Okay.
Yeah, no, and just to support what you're saying, so they changed this the third year. They changed offensive coordinators every year. This year they tried this thing where they used co-offensive coordinators, the running backs coach and the tight ends coach, and then they had the quarterbacks coach call plays. And then they changed who was calling the plays 3 or 4 times this year. Okay? So they had 2 different defensive coordinators. They've had 4 different offensive line coaches. So listen, I'm not saying Flores is not going to end up being a really good coach. He might be. But the things that were done while he was the coach are a problem. Not getting the offensive line better after 3 years. Listen, we're going to talk about Chris Greer in a minute, okay? Bringing in the talent that was brought in to fix the team, not good enough. The GM did a terrible job about, making the team better so Flores could do something with it. But also, guys, we got to be honest. You have standards or you don't. They underachieved.
Yeah, well,
okay?
Look, part of being the head coach, it's fine if you're a defensive guy and that's what you know the most about. That's fine, okay? Then, make sure the defense is good. You got to be able to bring in people who can handle the offense. You got to be able to assemble a good staff. Because if you can't do that, how the hell can you be a head coach? Because there's very few coaches, because there's really no coaches who know everything they need to know about multiple sides of the ball. There's Belichick and, I don't know, that's kind of it. So you have to be able to assemble a staff. You have to be able to attract the right staff to be able to try to get the most out of the players that you have on offense. If you can't do that, I don't understand how you're supposed to be a head coach. And this is a perfectly valid criticism. I understand that he won games, but is this sustainable if you keep switching coaches like this? You don't see this with some of these other good teams. They may change some assistants here and there, but it's not like they're switching offensive coordinators every year or defensive coordinators every year or having co-offensive court. What the hell are you doing? And then you can change play calling once during the season or something, but if you change it multiple times, it gets kind of, I don't know. It seems like that wouldn't be advisable. And just back to the point I was making about Tua, you earn the benefit of the doubt. Flores was watching him play. Okay. So the idea that it's in the heat of a game, what's holding him back from making that completion on 3rd and 6 or throwing that 5-yard out on 2nd and 9 to get a 3rd and manageable is he's sitting back there going, boy, I wish I could complete this pass, but I just don't think the coach believes in me. What the that's what's holding me back. Really?
And listen, after what just happened, Flores getting fired, Flores was doing the right thing because he had a winning record the last 2 years. He got fired anyway. So he needed to figure out how to win games. So now listen, this is not to say that Flores did a bad job. But
I don't think he did a bad job, but no.
But right. But the idea that he was fantastic and, got the most out of the team, I think is false. Because listen, to me, the first year he was there, they beat the Patriots the last game of the season, right? Fitzpatrick was the quarterback. They beat the Patriots with Brady. It knocked the Patriots out of having a first-round bye, and they lost in the first round of the playoffs. The Dolphins have never been as good as they were then. That was 2 years ago. They're not any better. So, we can talk about this all you want. We can talk about win-loss record statistics and all this stuff. They're not any better. When you watch them play, the team isn't better. So, and by the way, Flores did the best job of anybody out of the entire group, the quarterback, the owner, the GM. So, I do have sympathy for Flores because I think he deserved another year, to work it out. But this idea that his resume is impeachable is kind of nonsense.
Yeah,
I don't really buy it.
I would say look, if he gets another head coaching job, if he's unable to put a staff together, that's a good quality staff and keep people there and not fire everybody, it's not going to work out. Okay, and if that's the case, then he should just be a defensive coordinator because I think he's a pretty good defensive coordinator. So
Yeah. So what bothers me the most about this is it'd be one thing if they fire Flores, they fire the GM, we're starting over. But we keep the GM. Chris Grier gets to keep his job.
That's where the internal politics play into it. I think that from what Mike Florio was talking about this yesterday on Pro Football Talk, and he had a good way of describing it. He's basically like, look, Chris Grier is in the ear of the owner. Okay, he's got his attention. Flores would just focus on winning games. He's from the Patriots. Like, that's you just business. Just everybody do your job. Just head down, work your ass off. But Chris Grier is dealing with all that other stuff. And I guess they're aligned on Tua, or Chris Grier doesn't think Tua's the guy, but Stephen Ross does. So Chris Grier is saying, okay, fine, then it's this guy. And I just thought it was kind of funny that yes, they underachieved, but I thought it was funny that the Stephen Ross and Chris Grier were kind of, I guess their point was Flores wasn't getting enough out of the roster. Well, I mean, either he's not coaching well enough or the roster's not good enough. Like it can't. I don't. It could be a combination of the two, but I mean,
yeah. And listen, I think the coach and the GM are a package deal. You don't get to just separate it out and go, well, it's the coach, well, it's the GM.
The coach, didn't he?
What? Yeah, he picked the coach. He picked the coach. So, and Greer's been the GM for 7 years. Our offensive line's still terrible.
Yeah.
So obviously Grier doesn't know how to draft. I mean, seriously, most of the good players on our team were drafted in the last 2 years.
Yep.
So it's ridiculous. It just shows exactly how messed up and retarded the Dolphins organization is that they're going to get rid of Flores and keep the general manager. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. So
I
don't even know what to say. And to me, nobody's talking about it. We're focused on how could you fire Brian Flores, and to me, that's okay. Yeah, that's not good, but keeping the GM is way worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just I'm blown away by it. I feel bad.
The thing is, I'm trying to spin this forward and go, well, what is this? What are they going to do in the off season? Because now I feel like that's kind of up in the air. Because they're going to have to hire a new coach.
Yeah. Well, let's do this first. So, and we watched them beat the Patriots, which Dolphins had a nice win. Tua threw for a whopping 100 yards in the game.
Threw for 2 yards in the second half.
2 yards in the second half. 2
in an NFL game. 2 yards. 2 yards.
So Clark calls me after the game and goes, "All right, get him out of here. I'm done. Get this quarterback out of here. Tua's terrible. I've had it." And I was like, yeah, it's a fair point. So yeah, and that's the thing that I heard in a lot of the analysis after Flores gets fired is, Tua was improving. I mean, I don't know what games you guys are watching.
You know what was great? There was an article in the Ringer where it was about I think it was about Flores getting fired. But anyway, like there's this one part in it, and I forget exactly what it said. It says, "Look, if you squint hard enough, you can watch Tua and think that he's good." And that's actually perfect.
Well, and he's hard to see behind that line because he's so small. So yeah, I think
okay.
Yeah, it's just I kind of agree with you. I'm kind of done with it. I'm about ready to move on, and I don't know I'm not saying I know what they should do at quarterback. I really have no idea, but this guy's not the answer, and I think it's over with. I think we know.
Well, maybe I talked about this on the last podcast, but basically, look. As far as him being an elite quarterback, like that's not going to happen. I don't see any way that's going to happen. But there's a very narrow path to him being a competent starting quarterback for like 4 or 5 years. No.
Yeah, it's his margin for error is very small. He basically has to be perfect. And in that game, the last 2 games, you're just like, I thought this guy was accurate.
Yeah, that's the other thing. People are like, oh, his accuracy is so good, but the accuracy, like whenever he plays a good team, or when you really need him to be accurate, it doesn't happen. Um, yeah, I mean, it's just there's throws that like in the Titans game, I keep going back to that game. I'm not saying that they should have won the game, but that game should have been closer. Okay, and you're saying, yeah, but Tua can't throw the ball down the field, and the offensive line's bad. Did you watch the game? Like the offensive line wasn't terrible against the Titans. There were throws that he could have made to convert third downs, to keep drives going, to maybe get into field goal range, whatever, to at least keep the game closer than it was. If you're telling me that he can't even do that with the throws that are in his wheelhouse that he should be able to make, if you're telling me he can't even do that, then we're done. Like that's it. There's nothing there because, like I said, it's a narrow path to him being really successful because he doesn't have talent to fall back on. He doesn't have a lot of talent to fall back on. He doesn't have a strong arm to fall back on. He doesn't have, what are you gonna? It's not like he can run around.
Yeah, I mean, and that was the crazy part is the best plays he made in that New England game in the second half were him being able to run, which is not something you can depend on.
It was crazy. I don't know why I didn't realize this earlier in the game or earlier in the season, but you notice that his first drives in a lot of these games are really good. It's because they script the drive during the week. So he probably practices that all the time. And he looks really good on the first drive. But then after that, where it becomes – and then I think people get the idea that it's like, oh, well, he can't make plays when he's running around. I'm not talking about when he's running around. And I'm not talking about when the play breaks down and it like just totally blows up. But sometimes plays don't work out exactly as you want to. Like you got to step up in the pocket. You got to slide left or something like that. You got to call the protection differently. You got to do one little thing differently, and you can still make a play. And he doesn't do that. Okay, so if you're telling me he can't do that, what are we talking about?
And listen, I was against. Listen, I'll be full disclosure. I don't want to think I'm just being mean here. I was against it from the beginning. I didn't think they should draft him, and I didn't think he would ever be great or special. But I am shocked at how bad he is. I thought he had a chance to at least be Ryan Tannehill level. But
yeah, he's Ryan Tannehill.
I don't even see that. And so that's what's disturbing to me. For a guy who didn't think he would be very good, I'm shocked at how bad he is.
Yeah.
That just blows my mind. Like, I just, So, yeah, I mean, where do the Dolphins go from here? I mean, I was texting you earlier. It's like, all right, so I started looking at quarterbacks for the 2023 draft. So do we start tanking? Like what is there what do I have to look forward to here?
What I find funny is say they hire an offensive coach. They've asked to interview Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator for Buffalo. So say they hire an offensive coach. All right. I don't know how much better you're going to be able to make the offense. Even if you make it a little bit better than it is, which probably shouldn't be that hard, but if you make it a little bit better than it is, what if the defense falls off? Is the offense going to be able to pick up the slack if the defense falls off? And then if that happens, I mean, they lost 7 games in a row this year. Like, they could actually get a high pick not the upcoming draft, but the draft after that. So maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's really tough. It's sad. It's a sad day to be a Dolphins fan. It doesn't seem like there's any hope, and as long as this moron owns the team, we're in serious trouble. All right, folks. So yeah, man, we'll try to come back on before the playoffs next weekend to give you a little preview of that. But it was an awesome NFL season. I'm sad that I don't get to watch Red Zone anymore.
Yeah, but we got playoff games, so
yeah, it should be fun, especially that Monday night one. I know you're looking forward to
that. Yeah, I'm not sticking up for that.
All right, folks.
All right.